there are always these people, and you're going to have this on this broadcast when people write comments. They're going to say, just legalize dope, legalize it all. Legalize it, do that. We wouldn't have a problem with crime if we legalize it. We could spend hours talking on that conversation.
We could.
And we absolutely could. But I'm a firm believer in that some of those people are the same people who say abolish the 3-letter agencies. And I often talk about this. And I just say, and believe me, as a narcotics agent and as a cop and as a guy that cares about society, I do not think we're going to arrest our way out of the drug war. I don't think that arresting every single person with drugs is going to solve the problem. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's a difference between drug users and drug dealers. And drug dealers prey on the weak, and a lot of those become the drug users, number one. Number two is those same drug dealers are the ones causing a lot of violence. Legalizing drugs does not take the criminal element out of it. And we could spend days talking about this topic, but I'm a firm believer.
A quick question, though.
Sure.
How does it not... The criminal element's going to be the criminal element, to be clear. I'm aware of that, and they're going to find their racket. But if you legalize drugs, is what you're saying they're just going to move to something new, and that's going to be the source of violence? So you're creating a bigger problem?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying they're going to move to something new. There's still tons of marijuana being smuggled in the United States.
Yes,
there's still tons of
problem.
And then what happens is, and let's take marijuana out of the equation here in regards to legalization, because that train has left the station a long time ago. It's legal, and I embrace that, and I say, okay, celebrate it, do whatever you got to do. I don't smoke weed, but then again,
I didn't know that.
I don't smoke weed, but I don't care if you do.
Right.
It's as legal as an ice cream sandwich. Just whatever. It's not part of the conversation anymore. I'm talking about cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and some of the other drugs. If you legalize cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine, the addictive natures of those drugs, imagine what society would become like. I have a theory. It's called the M&M theory. Do you like M&Ms?
I like M&Ms.
I've been in your house. You have a beautiful office here. I don't see any M&Ms around here.
I'm not, my great-grandmother, when I was very little, she would keep a cup of M&Ms on every table. And
exactly.
she was the last person I knew who did that.
And what would happen when you went there?
I'd eat fucking all of them.
You'd eat them all.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's what I call the availability. But there are some people that wouldn't eat them all. But it's what I call the M&M theory. Availability equals consumption. The more things are available, the more subsections of society will consume. Of that group, those that consume, some of them will have that addictive gene and become addicted to cocaine, methamphetamine, or heroin. But remember, I said I don't think there's a way to arrest our way out of the situation, and I don't believe legalizing drugs. I still believe in what is a 360 approach to look at it all the way around, and I created an acronym, and the acronym is PETER. It stands for Prevention, Enforcement, Treatment, Education, and Recovery. So that's the way I look at it, and I think a lot differently than a lot of DEA agents as well, and that's one of the reasons I think why I was so successful. And that I have the theory, and that in order to be a successful law enforcement leader, a successful cop, and a successful detective, you sometimes have to have the ability to think outside the, and what do you say? Think outside the what?
The box?
You say the box. I say think outside the badge. Think a little bit differently. Don't think like a traditional cop all the time. You catch a guy with a small amount of heroin, maybe he doesn't need to go to jail. Maybe he needs to go to rehab immediately. Or maybe you defer and you don't charge him with a felony and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Or think outside the badge.
Yeah.
How are you going to attack problems differently?
Yes.
How are you going to find fugitives differently? How are you going to do this differently? And
that's great. That's great to hear you say that.
Absolutely.
You don't hear that a lot from guys that come from a position like yours. It's a little bit more, by the book.
Well, it's called, they call it a drug war, and there's a reason for it being a war, and that is it kills. Drugs and alcohol have killed more people than all the world wars combined.
Yes. But there's a question. So alcohol is legal.
Exactly.
Now, what it sounds like to me, and this might be very fair, by the way, but you have different, it's like in your mind, and I'd probably agree with you, you have different grades on it. So as an example, yeah, I view someone drinking and someone using heroin as two very, very different things, right? Like the level of the damage that can do to you.
Absolutely.
Right? So you're kind of separating out, like you look at alcohol and weed and where that is, and then you say, okay, but to use your exact terms, cocaine, methamphetamines, and I think heroin is what you said.
I do those opioids.
Okay. So those are the ones where you're like, when we're having this overall conversation of legalization, I think you were saying availability is going to equal use.
Availability equals consumption. That's the M&M theory. Your grandmother subscribed to it. Great-grandmother subscribed to it in a certain way. A lot of people want to make the comparisons, alcohol, marijuana. And a lot of times when I've given speeches, I say, I'm glad you bring that up. Alcohol is legal. Look at how many millions of people have died because of it. But you want to make the comparison, we'll continue. 9 out of 10 people who drink don't drink to get high. It's a social thing. They drink one drink. They have a beer after they mow the lawn. They have a drink at dinner, whatever the case may be. So 9 out of 10 people don't have a problem. And look at all the devastation it's caused already when it's 1 out of 10. Weed, 9 out of 10 people who smoke it normally smoke it to get high. I'm not, and that's the objective. So my point is, they're very vastly different in and of themselves as well. But remember what I said a couple of minutes ago. Let's not go down that. We're not going to change anyone's minds, and that's the other thing about TikTok that and some of these other questions that I have to answer in public.
What's your TikTok page, by the way?
It's called The DEA Guy.
It's a great page. People should go follow it. But we'll talk about it more later. Just want to make sure we got that.
So, and maybe one of these days on TikTok on The DEA Guy. That's my third time for those of you counting. And some of you are right now going, do that.
Go follow.
Okay.
Go follow.
But when I get asked this question, I already know what they think.
Yeah.
And that is, what do you think about legalization? I can tell you, I've been asked that question 1,000 times. I can tell you on one hand, there's only less than 5 people that were against legalization that asked that question. So the nature of the question and my reading of people over the years is when they ask that question, I already know what their answer is. And no matter what I say, I'm not going to change their mind. But they say, hey, I got a DEA agent here. I got this guy, et cetera, that knows all about the drug world, the drug culture and all that. And those are the same people that hadn't heard me speak about prevention, enforcement, treatment, education, and recovery.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. Please hit that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.